I remember the first time I met Mark. It was at an art exhibition in Paris, of all places. I was 28, still feeling like I was discovering who I wanted to be. Mark was everything I thought I wanted: charming, confident, and so full of life. He swept me off my feet with his grand gestures, his stories of traveling, and his genuine admiration for my passions. It felt like a fairy tale. We married within a year of meeting. Looking back, I realize now how naive I was. At first, our life together was as magical as I had hoped. Mark's affection never seemed to wane. He was always surprising me with flowers or spontaneous dinners. I was working part-time at a bookstore, which I loved. It gave me time to read and explore my own interests while still contributing to our household. But as time went on, things started to change. Shortly after we got married, Mark's demeanor began to shift. The charming man I had fallen for was replaced by someone who was demanding and lazy. He began to treat me less like a partner and more like a caretaker. His freelance photography career, which had seemed so exciting at first, became unstable. He would jump from one project to another, never sticking with anything for long. And as his career faltered, so did his motivation. I was pressured into quitting my job at the bookstore. Mark insisted I stay home, saying it was the best for our family. I gave in, thinking that maybe he knew better. But as I stayed home, taking care of our son, Leo, and managing the household, it became clear that Mark wasn't contributing at all. He'd spend days on end lounging around, leaving me to juggle all the responsibilities. Our marriage began to crumble under the weight of his neglect and my growing resentment. Leo was 8 years old by then, full of energy and curiosity. I did my best to make his life as normal as possible, despite the tension at home. Mark barely interacted with him, leaving me to handle everything from school pickups to bedtime stories. It felt like I was living in a constant state of exhaustion, trying to keep our family together while feeling like I was losing myself. The turning point came in the form of a severe traffic accident. I was on my way to the grocery store when a car hit me. I remember the pain and confusion vividly. I was rushed to the hospital, and the injuries were serious. I spent weeks there, unable to move much, the whole time feeling abandoned. Mark's behavior during this time was shocking. He didn't visit me for weeks. When he finally did, it wasn't to comfort me. Instead, he criticized me for not being able to handle household chores and blamed me for everything that was going wrong. It was then that he demanded a divorce. His words stung, but deep down, I wasn't surprised. I had been thinking about ending our marriage for some time, but I was waiting for the right moment. I had already suspected that something was off in our marriage. I had discovered Mark's affair with a woman named Sophie. I found love letters hidden in his studio. They were filled with affection and promises, things I had once thought were meant for me. The pain of that discovery was immense, but it also gave me clarity. I hired a private investigator to gather evidence, and what he uncovered was even worse than I had imagined. The photos and recordings of Mark and Sophie together were proof of his betrayal. With all this evidence, I felt a mix of sadness and determination. When Mark finally pushed for the divorce, I agreed without hesitation. He was taken aback by my swift response, but I was ready. The financial dependency I had felt for years was about to change, and I was no longer willing to stay in a marriage that had become so toxic. Then came the unexpected call from my father, Robert. He and my mother were retiring from their luxury boutique chain in Paris, and they wanted to transfer their assets to me, $10 million. The news was overwhelming, but it also gave me a sense of liberation. For the first time, I felt truly free to make decisions for myself without being financially tethered to Mark. Soon after, another accident, this time, a car hitting me, left me bedridden for months. My time in the hospital was a blur of pain and recovery, and Mark's indifference only made things worse. When he visited, his focus was solely on finalizing the divorce. I handed him the papers, and he signed them without a second thought. Living with my parents while I healed was a comfort. The support they provided was a balm to my wounded spirit. I knew I was making the right choice, but the journey ahead was still uncertain. The sense of freedom I felt was tempered by the challenge of rebuilding my life from the ground up. As I lay in bed, recovering from the accident, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led me to this point. I was determined to reclaim my independence and rebuild my life, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Little did I know the real test was just beginning. Life after the accident was a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. I was still in the hospital, my body slowly mending from the injuries, when I made the decision to finally move forward with the divorce. Mark's visits were sporadic and cold, often more about finalizing the paperwork than about showing any real concern for me. His attitude only reinforced my resolve to break free from the toxic relationship. I remember one particularly difficult day. I was lying in bed, my body aching with every movement, when the hospital room door opened. Mark walked in, his expression as indifferent as ever. "How are you feeling?" he asked, but there was no warmth in his voice. "Still in pain?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Mark nodded, but his next words were a harsh blow. "I need you to sign these papers. We need to finalize everything. I've got things to do, you know." He thrust a stack of documents at me, barely glancing at my face. It was as if my suffering was nothing more than a minor inconvenience to him. I took the papers with trembling hands and signed them, my heart heavy with the weight of finality. I had already prepared myself for this moment, but it was still a painful realization of how far we had fallen. As I was preparing to leave the hospital and move in with my parents, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and apprehension. My parents, Robert and Linda, were waiting for me at their home, eager to help me recover and support me in any way they could. Their home was a stark contrast to the environment I had left behind, warm, loving, and filled with the reassurance that I wasn't alone in this. I spent several months recuperating at their house. Every day was a struggle, but it was also a chance to rebuild my strength and my spirit. During this time, I tried to focus on myself and my future. My father's unexpected gift of financial independence was a beacon of hope. I knew it was my chance to start over, to take control of my life and find my own path. As I started feeling better, I began to think about what I wanted to do with my newfound freedom. Returning to graphic design had always been a dream of mine, but I hadn't had the opportunity to pursue it fully. Now, with the financial security my parents' gift had provided, I could finally consider it seriously. One day, while I was still recuperating, I received a call from Mark. His voice on the phone was hesitant, almost pleading. "Emma, can we talk? I know things ended badly, but I've been thinking a lot lately." I was taken aback. "What do you want to talk about?" "I know I made a mess of everything," he said, his tone surprisingly contrite. "But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I want to make things right." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "You want to make things right now? After everything you've done?" Mark's silence, on the other end, was heavy. "I know I messed up, but I didn't realize how much until it was too late. Sophie, she isn't what I thought she'd be. She's not like you." His words stung, but they also confirmed what I already knew. His second marriage was falling apart. I wasn't sure what Mark expected from me, but I had no intention of going back to the life I had left behind. "I appreciate the apology," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm not interested in revisiting our past. I've moved on. And you still have responsibilities, alimony, and child support that need to be settled." Mark's response was a mixture of frustration and desperation. "Emma, please don't do this. I need you to understand that I regret everything." I hung up the phone feeling a mix of relief and sadness. I had hoped for closure, but his call only reminded me of why I had made the decisions I did. It was clear to me that Mark's actions had been driven more by regret than by any real understanding of the pain he had caused. As I continued to heal and reflect on my life, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. The freedom and financial security my parents' gift had given me were transforming into a renewed sense of purpose. I was determined to use this opportunity to rebuild my life on my own terms, to embrace my independence and reclaim my self-worth. Little did I know, the journey ahead would test my resilience in ways I had never imagined. But I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that I had the strength to overcome it all. By the time I was fully recovered, I had settled into a new routine with my parents, and my life was beginning to take on a sense of normalcy again. My father's unexpected gift had given me more than just financial security. It had given me the chance to dream and rebuild. I decided to use this opportunity to return to my passion, graphic design. With the resources available to me, I could finally take the leap I had always wanted. I started small, taking on freelance design projects from home. It was a slow start, but each project reminded me of my capabilities and my love for the creative process. My parents were incredibly supportive, and their encouragement was a comforting constant in this new phase of my life. One evening, as I was working on a design project in the cozy living room of my parent house, the phone rang. It was Mark again. His voice, this time, was filled with frustration. "Emma, I need to talk to you. It's about Leo." I took a deep breath before answering. "What's going on?" "There's been a problem with Sophie," Mark said, his voice wavering. "She's not managing things well, and I'm struggling to keep up with everything. I need your help with Leo." I was taken aback. "Help with Leo? You've been absent for so long, and now you want to involve me?" I know, Mark said quickly. "I've made mistakes, but I'm trying to fix them. I just don't know how to manage everything with Sophie falling short." His words were frustrating. "Mark, I've moved on from this life. Leo deserves stability, but I can't just drop everything to fix your problems." Mark's response was desperate. "Please, Emma, I'm at my wit's end here. I need you to help us work something out for Leo's sake." I was torn. My first instinct was to protect my son from any further disruption, but I also knew that I had my own life to rebuild. I agreed to meet with Mark to discuss Leo's situation, but I made it clear that any involvement would be on my terms. The meeting was uncomfortable. Mark looked exhausted, and Sophie was nowhere to be seen. "Emma, thank you for coming," Mark said as we sat down in a small cafe. "I'm trying to make things right, but I need your help." I studied him, seeing the weariness in his eyes. "What exactly do you need?" "We need a better arrangement for Leo," Mark explained. "He's been asking about you and seems unsettled. I'm struggling to manage his needs, and Sophie, she's just not fitting into the role of a mother." The reality of the situation was hard to ignore. Leo was caught in the middle of a broken family, and despite everything, I knew I had to be there for him. "All right," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'll help coordinate some arrangements for Leo. But this needs to be done properly, with clear boundaries." Mark nodded, visibly relieved. "Thank you, Emma. I appreciate it." We worked out a plan that included regular visits and clear communication about Leo's needs. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I had no illusions about Mark's intentions or his ability to handle everything perfectly, but I needed to ensure that Leo's well-being was prioritized. As the weeks passed, I found a rhythm in my new life. My freelance work picked up, and I began to feel a sense of accomplishment and purpose. I was finding joy in my work and comfort in the love and support of my parents. My relationship with Leo improved, and seeing him happy and thriving brought me a sense of fulfillment I had missed for years. Mark's situation with Sophie continued to unravel, but I remained focused on my own path. It was clear that Mark's problems were far from over, but I chose not to dwell on them. My priority was to be a supportive mother and to continue building a future for myself and Leo. One evening, as I watched Leo playing in the park, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey to this point had been filled with challenges and pain, but it had also been a path to rediscovery and empowerment. I had faced my fears, stood up for myself, and embraced a new beginning. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and I was learning to navigate it with strength and resilience. I knew that the road ahead would have its own set of challenges, but I was ready to face them head-on. My story was far from over, and I was determined to make the most of every opportunity that came my way. The months following the divorce and the new arrangement with Leo were a whirlwind of adjustment and growth. I had settled into a new rhythm, finding solace in my work and the simple pleasures of life. It was during this period that I received a call that was both surprising and unsettling. Mark, who had been relatively quiet after the divorce, reached out again. "Emma, can we talk?" he asked, his voice strained. I agreed to meet him, curious about what he wanted this time. We met at a quiet cafe in Paris, a place where we had once shared happier moments. Mark looked older and more worn out than I remembered. Emma, he began, his voice trembling slightly. I'm in trouble. Sophie and I, things didn't work out. She's left, and now I'm facing financial difficulties. I've realized how much I messed up, and I need your help. I listened, feeling a mix of emotions. Mark, what are you asking of me? I'm asking for a chance, he said. I know I was wrong. I've been trying to reach out to you because I've realized what I lost. I need to make things right, and I'm not sure how to do it alone. I took a deep breath. Mark, I've worked hard to rebuild my life. I've found stability and purpose, and I can't let your problems derail that. But I do want to make sure Leo is okay. What exactly do you need? I need help with the financial obligations, Mark admitted. I can't keep up with the child support and alimony payments. I'm struggling, and I don't know how to manage it all. The request was difficult to hear. I had always known that Mark's decisions would have consequences, but hearing him admit his struggles was a stark reminder of the reality he was facing. Mark, I said, I've been doing everything I can to provide for Leo. I can't take on more than I already have. You need to find a way to manage your responsibilities. Mark's face fell, and he looked defeated. I understand. I wanted you to know how sorry I am. I've made so many mistakes, and I see now how much I hurt you and Leo. His apology was too little, too late. Mark, I appreciate your honesty, but actions speak louder than words. You need to take responsibility for your actions and face the consequences. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure. Mark's struggles were his own to deal with, and while I sympathized with his situation, I couldn't let it affect my own progress. I had worked hard to create a new life for myself and Leo, and I wasn't going to let anything jeopardize that. Life continued to unfold, and I found joy in the simple things, working on design projects, spending time with Leo, and enjoying the support of my parents. My relationship with Leo grew stronger, and I was grateful for the stability we had found together. One day, as I was working at the bookstore, a familiar face walked in. It was an old friend from my past, someone I hadn't seen in years. We caught up over coffee, and I shared my journey with her. She listened attentively, offering support and encouragement. You've come so far, Emma, she said. It's inspiring to see how you've turned your life around. Her words were a comforting reminder of how much I had accomplished. The road hadn't been easy, but I had navigated it with determination and resilience. I had faced my fears, rebuilt my life, and found strength in my own abilities. As I looked back on my journey, I saw it as a testament to the power of self-worth and perseverance. The story of my life was one of overcoming adversity and finding empowerment in the face of challenges. I had learned that true strength comes from within and that embracing one's own value is the key to personal growth and happiness. The future remained uncertain, but I was ready to face it with confidence. My story was a continuous journey, and while the road ahead might have its own set of obstacles, I knew that I had the resilience and strength to navigate whatever came my way.